Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Conversations in Christian Living. It's been about a year at the time of filming since our lockdown started, and our expert panel today, we're going to ask them two questions, and we hope to encourage one another to see God's actions in our lives. The two questions will be, where have you experienced God this past year, and how did that experience shape you? And then we'll go from there. So up first, 1 year of lockdown, Caroline. How did you experience God this past year?
Oh, I put a lot of thought into this, and I would say tremendously. Tremendously. I look at the character of God. God is an unchanging God. God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He is unchanging. And it's a year of contrast for me. There's an unchanging God, faithful, steadfast, and the world that's upside down, an upheaval, like we haven't experienced. I've never experienced something like that. And that contrast, that experience of being in an unchanging, unplanned circumstances, and mostly unwanted off the bat, then it drove me again and again and again to God. In fact, while I was thinking about this reflection, I thought, no matter what the turn of events, turn to God. No matter the turn of events, we need to turn to God. And look at his unchanging character. And
can I bug
yes.
you? Is there a specific situation you had in mind? This was not prepared, everyone, so she can feel free to say no.
Well, it's different things. If we serve an unchanging God, then there's a real foothold there for us. It's a stable place.
Yeah. God
is our place of safety. And in a world of uncertainty right now. So we have to keep looking back to who God is. Over the course of halfway through the pandemic, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. Mm-hmm. So never mind COVID, then there's cancer. And there's a whole new set of emotions that go with this. And then you say, okay, God, you are unchanging. You are a loving God. God never ceases to work. He works through people. Mm-hmm. And so we were recipients of God's ministry, God's blessing, through people, prayers, all sorts of kindnesses, food, flowers, emails, and because people couldn't come in the house because of our COVID situation.
Yeah.
And so God proved himself as a provider God, as a God of love. He is love. And for every person, there's a COVID story, right? I mean, ours is not anything spectacular or different. It was our story. It still is. There's still COVID and there's still cancer. And so my points of reference, as a daughter of the King, it's prayer, it's Bible study, and those are the points of reference. Those are the things that anchor us. Mm-hmm. It's been a year, as everybody said, to reset and pause. Mm-hmm. Take a step back. I did. We were, especially with COVID, and with my husband being at high risk, I really had to be careful where I went. And so a lot of home time. And home time, that meant reading more, journaling more, prayer journaling more this past year. Just reflecting. There have been difficult times, as with everyone, tough times. But you have to turn back to God. Mm-hmm. I just picked up a quote, and I'd like to read it. It's by John Ortberg, who wrote this. He said, peace doesn't come from finding a lake with no storms. It comes from having Jesus in the boat.
Yeah, that's good. Peter. Peter is in his capacity as the pastor today, but also just as maybe Peter Bush as well. Where did you find Jesus this past year? Or where did you experience him?
I think that one of the things that's become very clear is that whatever plans you have, you throw them out the window.
Yeah.
And I think that that then leads us to recognize that we have to trust Jesus. We have to trust God, triune God of grace. That God has a plan and God will bring that to fruition. And we then are on the journey. So I think that this invites us to humility. And that's sort of bridging into the second piece, if I can go there.
That's fine, yeah. We'll edit it out later. No, it's a joke.
I do think that one of the things that this has taught me, and I hope taught all of us, is to live more human-sized lives. I think that we were living, particularly in the North American West, we were living enlarged lives that were larger than human size. And I think that hopefully this has caused all of us to reflect on the fact that we're not God. That we need to live smaller lives. Smaller doesn't mean diminished. You know, to quote a really old textbook that I read 35 years ago at university, Shoemaker's, small is beautiful. Smaller is not diminished. And I think that this is an invitation to recognize it's okay to be small, it's okay to be human, it's okay to live with humility. And if we leave this not having learned those things, then I think that's a tragedy.
That resonates with me. Just briefly on my account, I remember sitting in Zoom meetings in April of last year where church experts said very authoritatively what we must do and what will come. They said, the church is going to become the care center of the community and we're going to feed the community. And many churches are going to run out of money and we're going to move to house churches. And these people sounded like they knew what they were talking about, but in the end, served buoyed the Canadian economy. And thankfully, the churches are doing okay. And for me, at least, it was like you can sound as authoritative as you want, but ultimately, our key reference for the Christian life is keeping in step with the Spirit as we make decisions. So that's fun for me. I think we've already said how did this experience shape us, but just in case. Caroline first, how did your experience shape you?
I just want to piggyback on what Peter said. This sense of we are not in control. And we really like to say that we are, generally, when everything goes well. But we're not. And, God says to us in all things, He says, He's a welcoming God. He says, come. He invites us to come and to rest in Him. And to Peter used let God and let go. Let go and let God recently. And that's very true. And He's a sovereign God. And when we think about that, then there's a sense of, I'm His child. And I'm going to let Him take over. And so in all these things, I just want to say, I choose God. No matter what the events, no matter what the circumstances are. And let Him be the one who directs, like a shepherd. Like the shepherd in Psalm 23. He wants to look after us.
Yeah. You've already spoken, but what else does God taught you?
I also think He's inviting us to live with a different sense of time.
Yes.
That fits with the other stuff I've said already. But that our sense of time is largely irrelevant. Shortly after this, we are on a Thursday afternoon going to film for Sunday. So time, So my week is completely turned upside down.
Mhm.
Thursday is Sunday. And I realize it's a small thing, but it invites us to reflect on how driven we are by our calendars and by our clocks around how we think about time. And God is bigger than that, bigger than our clocks, bigger than our calendars, and has an ability to blow our time to pieces. And so I think there's another thing about letting go and letting God. It's about letting go of our schedules.
Yeah. I resonate with that. With the length of the video, maybe I'll just cut it there. If you want to talk more, you have his number, okay, everybody? We hope this has been encouraging to you. We have felt God's leading and presence this year. And probably the craziest year that's been on record, at least in my lived experience. And so we hope that you have a sense of God's presence too, that you'll know his faithfulness that is from everlasting, and you'll be surrounded by his love. See you next time, everyone.